Hey, what's going on, guys? We're back for the next part of our Learning to Shop tutorial series, and before we move into the next system we want to work on, which is either going to be the store or the tutorial, probably the tutorial because we've been putting it off for a little bit, we're going to go ahead and finish off where we left off with the serialization and test it, just to make sure everything works the way it should be. I know last time I left you guys with a bit of homework. It was pretty easy. Hopefully everybody thought it was easy. But it's the same exact code over again, just renaming some things, changing some things to texture 2Ds, and actually I'm going to rename this to get overlay. And that's that. So I'm going to go ahead and load up Unity. And, whoops. While that's loading, let's go ahead and close out of some of these classes that we don't need right now. Alrighty, so first thing you're going to want to do is fix our code errors. Overlay, okay. So you notice we now have some errors in our overlay manager where we reference the weapon audio clip, and instead we're passing in a string, and that is because we need to pass in the audio clip instead. So first we'll open up our overlay manager, and we go ahead and I'll just search for play clip at point because that's what I use for all of them. Here we have our current weapon.fire sound. Instead, what we want to do is pass in our local SFX manager dot instance, making sure I spelled that right, get clip, passing in that string reference name of fire sound. Let's go ahead and search again. And we're going to do the same thing here where we just pass in that get clip. And then we need to plug in that second parenthesis, hit save, and there we go. Next we need to go ahead and actually set these guys up because in the inspector our overlay manager should be having some problems actually. Let's load up the neighbor map, and in our main camera here, if you go to our overlay manager, we now have a string for this guy, and this guy, and I actually forgot to change our texture to a string, so we'll have to do that as well. Let it recompile. Oh, hold on. We need to fix up the errors for this in the overlay manager as well. Okay. I'm gonna move this over here just so I can see it easier. We'll go to our overlay manager on line 71 it's complaining about first, which is in here. We'll pass in the local overlay manager, or rather, okay, yeah, never mind. Instance get overlay. Now, what I was thinking about earlier is we could use this get overlay in the first frame of the game when we load it up to load that overlay to the memory stream where we can use that as a variable instead. It's probably easier than calling this get overlay method multiple times. But there's I don't know, I haven't really took this into account, but let's say we have a game where we can switch weapons. I don't know if that would be reasonable for this game, but let's say we could, then we would need to call that local overlay manager.instance.get overlay again for the new reference name. But for now, we'll go ahead and just call it multiple times. And we'll go ahead and actually, a better idea is instead of calling it, whoops. Instead of just, we can still fix this by making a variable, but instead we'll generate it every frame. So we'll do var overlay equals local overlay manager dot instance dot get overlay, passing in the current weapon dot overlay. And you're probably thinking, what is this var thing? And a var is a generic variable. It can be of any type, and that's just if you get lazy and I don't want to type up texture 2D because I'm lazy, so I just use var. Next, we're just gonna remove that current weapon there, remove current weapon here, and remove current weapon there, because overlay is now this texture 2D we got this frame. Hit save, let Unity recompile. The next error is on line 119, which is an update function, or not. It's way before update function. I'm not sure what I was thinking there, but here we have the current weapon dot overlay dot width. We're gonna go ahead and do the same thing here, where we grab this overlay, and we're gonna go ahead and just remove current weapon. Hit save. The next one I was complaining about was at that's it. So now you'll notice we have the string overlay, and we're going to pass in Springfield. We're going to pass in the Springfield, and here we'll just use Springfield underscore BB for bolt back, and Springfield underscore BU for bolt up. Now, one thing I forgot to mention is, well, never mind. It's not important at the moment. Next, let's go ahead and create the prefab that we want. In fact, I don't think we have a prefabs folder, so we'll go ahead and create a new prefabs folder here. Whoops. And first thing I'm going to do is drag on this main camera, and we're going to call this generic level manager. So we're going to need to drag this onto every single scene, but obviously we can change up the level manager data where we return the delay, the targets, the, whatever. And then another prefab we want to make is our SFX manager and our overlay manager. So we'll make the SFX one first, and we'll add on this local SFX manager. In fact, we'll do local data manager that holds all of our information, so we can go ahead and add on our local overlay manager as well. And it turns out our dictionary is not actually serializable. So let's go ahead, and I'm going to make sure real quick that it is in fact not serializable. If not, then we're going to have to create a list instead. Okay, so yeah, we cannot serialize this. So instead what we'll do is, instead of a dictionary, we'll do we'll do in addition to our dictionary, we'll do a public list of type texture 2D. And actually, you know what? The best way, I was trying to avoid this, but the best way is we're going to make another class outside of this class, and we'll do, we'll pass in the system.serializable, and we'll make a public class, and we're going to call this texture, or we'll call it reference texture. And what we'll do with this reference texture is we want a public texture 2D, and we'll call them texture, or yeah, texture, I guess. and we'll make a public string ref name. And then instead of having a dictionary, what we'll do is have a public list of this reference texture here. And we'll call this overlays equals new list of reference textures. Now, you'll notice we have a problem here. We no longer have this. Well, we no longer have has this contains key method, and we can no longer access this by a string. We have to plug in an index. So two things. First, we're gonna do we'll do our own custom little function here. We'll do overlays dot contains reference name, or shoot. Instead, we'll do if. We have to make our own method. So we'll do if not has overlay, passing in the reference name. Then do that. We'll go ahead and create this boolean in a second. And then here we'll have to pass in the get index, passing in that same reference name. And this will be of type int. So both of these are going to utilize for loops. We'll do the has overlay first. We'll do a for each reference texture t in overlays. And before that, actually, we'll go ahead and initialize a new boolean variable, call it temp, and default it to false. And after we do this for loop, we'll go ahead and return that same temporary variable. And then in here, we'll do if t dot reference name is equal to a reference name. Then we'll go ahead and do a temp equals true, and then break out of this for loop. Now, one thing I was thinking about while I paused is a better way of, instead of doing this get index here, instead we're going to utilize our out functionality. I know I talked about this a long time ago in the 2D platformer about our out modifier, and we're going to make our own. So we'll do up here, we'll do int index, and here we'll just plug in that index, and then here we'll do comma out index, and then here we also need to do this out int index. And next, what we need to do is actually modify this index. So instead of doing a for each statement where we do not have access to the index, instead what we'll do is we're going to have to change this to a for loop, a generic for loop. So we'll do for int I is equal to 0, I is less than overlays dot count I plus plus, and then here we'll have to pass in that overlays sub I, and then out here we'll do index equals I. And actually, we need to initialize that outside here, so we'll do int I. And then now this is working the way we want it to. So index dot texture. Now, one way we can make this even more efficient is, instead of taking out this, well, never mind. We could go ahead and get out the texture from here, because we already found the overlay index, so we can get it out the texture 2D instead of the integer. But either way, it's probably the same amount of efficiency, so we're going to keep it as is, and then we're going to go ahead and have to do the same for our local SFX manager. So I'm going to go ahead and leave you guys with some homework. You do the same for the SFX manager, which is virtually the same code.